Welcome, everybody, to the October 15th meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission. I'm Hillary Hedges-Rayport, and I'm chair of the commission. The meeting is being recorded, so just be careful to know that you're being recorded. I'm going to go ahead and go around, make sure everybody's here and that you can all hear me. We're going to start with our commissioners. Tom Montgomery.
Here.
Mickey Rowland.
Here.
David Silver.
Here.
Clement Durkes.
Here.
Angus MacLeod.
Here.
Georgia Raisman.
Here.
And we have our preservation planner, Holly Backus.
Present.
And Kadeem McCarthy, HTC administrator.
Present.
Thanks. Great. So I don't see any public comment. So we'll just go ahead to approval of the minutes. I want to stress that if you need more time to review the minutes, we don't have to approve them in this meeting, but if you had a chance to look at them, please go ahead and let me know if you have any comments and if there's a motion to approve the minutes of the September meeting.
Approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
Thank you, Angus. Okay, all in favor. David?
Aye.
Georgia?
Aye.
Clement?
Aye.
Mickey?
Aye.
Tom and Angus, are you in favor of your motions?
Aye.
Aye.
And I also approve the minutes. Great. We are really getting up to date. We're totally up to date with the minutes except for August 20th, when our meeting wasn't recorded because of all of that technical problem. So we'll try to pull something together for those minutes. Okay, so we have some administrative issues. I am proposing that we follow in the footsteps of every other commission and committee of volunteers on Nantucket and request to be designated special municipal employees. What this means is, of course, we're subject to ethics laws, which you all know from your training. And there's municipal employees, and then there's certain groups that can be designated by their governing authority as special municipal employees. It just makes it a little bit less strict what kind of disclosures you have to make. As a municipal employee, if you have any financial interest in any dealing of the town, you need to disclose it or abstain from any discussion. If you're a special municipal employee, that disclosure is limited to areas within your authority. So as special municipal employees, if you had like a trash hauling company and there was a discussion, if you had a trash hauling company and there was a discussion about trash hauling, you would have to disclose, you would have to recuse yourself. But for special municipal employees, you're limited to the area that you have advisory or regulatory responsibility for. This is very confusing. Anyway, every commission is designated a special municipal employee, and Erica said we just needed to ask. So is that okay? I'm probably belaboring this point. All right, so I'm gonna ask.
Yeah, fine with me.
I'm going to make the request for Erica. Hi, Barbara. Oh, we can't hear you, but I can see you.
Sorry, I'm late. It's 7 in the morning here and I somehow fell back asleep. So
Oh, how did that happen?
I don't know.
So are you still in Montana?
No, we're in San Diego.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you. The second topic on our agenda is the annual report that is due to the town. I distributed a draft of the annual report and I'm looking for comments, requests, discussion, or a motion.
I move that we submit the report as written.
I second that.
Okay, great. So we'll have a vote on that. Mickey?
Aye.
Angus?
Aye.
Tom and Clement, are you in favor of your motions?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
Georgia?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. Terrific. Okay, so on to the staff and board chair update. You'll see that in the packet, there was a pre-application that's due November 15th for moving forward with our island-wide survey. I'm suggesting that we submit that. I'm assuming that we will have $20,000 to match from the town. Holly, did you have any comments for us on the pre-application?
Yes, just that we will have money budgeted we're requesting money budgeted for the next budget cycle for like we had obviously for this coming up, because obviously we have to have a match. So yes, that's good. I mentioned it to the planning director that this is something that the commission was going to be discussing to move that forward, as well as you remember probably, Hillary, when we had our kind of kickoff meeting with the state after we were selected, there were other communities there that were doing just that. They were continuing on a phased project. So it's nothing like we're not doing something that's not heard of. This is what communities that are CLGs do to update their surveys. So this makes sense. I am concerned on what that means as far as staff's perspective, trying to target everything with the ongoing one and this new one, but hey, it is what it is, and I think it's a good important thing for obviously preservation planning for Nantucket. So I'm supportive of it.
Thank you, Holly. And this is a pre-application, so the grant's due in March. It's going to be a lot easier to get this done. I mean, even writing the pre-application, I just took a bunch of the stuff that we did last year and just said, look, we're doing a plan. So obviously we're going to have a plan that tells us implementation. We're just going to follow the plan. So it's all a lot easier this time around. And hopefully, Holly, the plan will be done by, this year's work should hopefully be done by the time we start next year's work, and it's just a continuous cycle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and submit that pre-application. I'll mail it. I signed the one last year. It's not binding, so there's no problem with me signing it. It needs to go in hard copy. So I'm going to go ahead and do that unless anyone wants to have further discussion about that.
I would just simply request if you could copy me when you do send that.
Sure.
Or at least send an email so that way I can let obviously town admin and the planning director know that that's going to be sent out.
Okay. Yep. Okay, Holly, so we're still on MHC survey projects. You want to give us an update on what's happening?
Yes. So I received this week the formal acceptance from MHC for us to move forward with Public Archaeology Lab, PAL, which is great. Also last week. Sorry, I get so many dates in my head. The contract with PAL was on the select board's agenda on the 6th. So they have approved that. So right now it's, I'm waiting for procurement to let me know. So I'm kind of going back and forth between procurement and MHC. MHC is very prescriptive because you also got to think about that this funding source is coming from the federal government through Congress. Congress is very prescriptive. So MHC has to, cross all their T's and dot all their I's, so to speak, and then it kind of trickles down with the town. And then obviously the town is very set in their ways with how they do procurement in general. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of a little bit of a ping pong ball, but it's expected. I also did receive and I sent it to procurement, a copy of the state's signed contract. So as you can remember, we the town received the funding source. So there's a contract between the town and the state. And then we are obviously finalizing the contract with the town and our consultant, PAL. So I'm looking forward to getting that finalized, the contract with PAL, so I can set this, our pre-meeting up with them to get this ball rolling. time is of the essence, and they're through that package that they submitted, that I'm looking forward to having them. And just on the sidebar note, Pal, I'm familiar with the head of this particular project with Pal. She was actually a adjunct professor at times with Roger Williams when I was going to school there. They're located in Rhode Island. Rhode Island's very small. The world of cultural resources obviously is fairly small, but these folks have been doing this for many years. They know what they're doing. And I think Nantucket is very, very fortunate to be able to move forward with them. So good news. I'll keep you all posted.
So that's great, Holly. Once all of the bureaucracy of the paperwork is behind us, we actually get to the fun part, which is doing the work, hearing from the consultant, actually seeing this idea take shape and helping to influence its success. So as far as our commission's involvement, meeting with the consultant, giving advice to the consultant, and not just our commission, but also our friends who are so knowledgeable on Nantucket, making sure that the consultant has all of the information and the direction they need to produce the best possible project. What's your advice about how to organize that, how we can support you, Holly?
So I will be having, once that is all set, I will be having a scheduled meeting with MHC and PAL to get that started, because as you know, we have certain phases of the project, and there's actually multiple phases for both projects that are going simultaneously, which makes it a little kind of convoluted in a way, but it sounds like that's nothing new that we PAL is made it clear that they'll be able to go with that. The PAL will basically work with me on establishing when we can have meetings. So basically what I would like to do is once they are okay with setting up meetings, we'll obviously have, you all will have a chance to obviously meet with them. It would make sense. I was actually really hoping, again, it all depends on where we stand with the finalizing of the contract, but would really like to see if they would be able to zoom in maybe when we have our meeting with the HTC, when we have the joint CLG meeting. It's very important because, again, at the end of the day, we wouldn't be where we're at without this joint collaboration as a CLG. It's a joint group effort that's going to benefit everybody. So that's my goal, would be really to have them, at that meeting. That's probably obviously not going to be the first time that we're going to have a meeting with them, but I think it would be very important to have them going with that. Again, once I can have this all finalized, the bureaucratic part of it, we'll have a set schedule of meetings, and obviously letting the commission know, both commissions know where those are and how we're going to do that, of course. But hopefully PAL will be able to come to Nantucket too. Maybe there'll be some in-person meeting, but I'll keep you all posted on that too as well. So.
Great. So Holly, as you start to schedule everything and think about the touch points, the grant group was Tom and me and Don is no longer here with us on the commission. Barbara has taken his place. So I'm wondering if maybe Barbara, would you like to be part of kind of a steering group? I don't know if you have time, but just in the spirit of you're occupying Don's seat.
Yeah, I'd be interested. I mean, once I get back to Nantucket in November, I'll have a lot more brain power to focus. We've just been traveling, so
Yeah.
yes.
I think it would be good to have a steering group from this commission that Holly can liaise with easily. Tom, do you have the ability? Can you continue to do that? Okay. So Holly, let us know as once the ink is dry, how we can get started. So we'll follow up on that.
I'm hoping as soon as it's literally done, then we can get going. So.
Okay, great. And thank you, Barbara and Tom. Okay, I have another update that's not on the agenda because it just popped up, is Mayflower Wind is the next wind energy project. And the Bureau of Ocean and BOEM, BOEM, the Bureau of Ocean and Energy Management, is that what it is? They are engaging in a Section 106 process, reaching out to possible partners who want to be considered consulting parties. So we have indicated, I have indicated after consulting with Holly and Tom, who was our representative last time, and also speaking with their consultant, that we will be consulting parties. I've requested that we be a consulting party. So that's just an FYI. Holly, is there anything else you want to say about Mayflower Wind?
No, I just wanted to really mention that, first of all, I would hope that Tom would be continuing being your Section 106 rep with these wind farm discussions. Obviously, this is not going to be the first nor the last. Obviously, the last one was Vineyard Wind. There's going to be multiple. And just so you all are clear, the town does have expert counsel continued moving forward. This one obviously is on their radar. So they are aware, they represent the town, NPDC, HTC, Historical Commission, all town entities together. But we as individual representation still have our voice. So obviously they have our best interest at heart. I will tell you, if you're not familiar with Community Heritage Partners, they are the best of the best in the nation for this type of work. Again, this is a new thing for the United States, really and truly, and looking at the NHL, making sure this Section 106 and 110F of the National Historic Preservation Act is upheld. Undue harm on the NHL, very important. So as long as you all are happy with having Tom as your rep, I think that's good. Move forward. And we'll just, as we get these consultation letters, make sure that our consultants, our special expert counsel are aware that you received it. And I have taken your response and forwarded it along. And yeah, there'll be multiple of these. So thanks, Tom. And thank
Can you guys all still hear me?
Yep.
Am I frozen?
Oh, you were for just a second and then you weren't. Oh, wait, now you are.
Now you-
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Now you're
Are
back.
Are we good? Okay, sorry. Okay, fall course with NAREB. So this was supposed to be in October, and they decided that since they couldn't have it in person, to ask us, they really wanted this class to be in person. So it's been moved to some meet in the spring, which is fine with me because I did not have time to prepare in October. I was so swamped. And I don't know if it'll be any different in the spring, but anyway, we have a little bit more time. And I do appreciate that they wanted to do it in person. It's a disappointment because, of course, whenever something's deferred, then you wonder again if it's actually going to happen. But that's the status of that. Okay, I sent a note around about this issue with the Verizon polls. Holly, do you have anything else to add about that?
No,
No.
I do not.
Okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it, but I would like to share my screen and have everybody look at this fiber wrap solution, because honestly, I'm not sure it's better. I mean, maybe it is, I don't know, or it might just be like, you know, those cell towers that they tried to make look like giant sequoias. I mean, it could be something like it's just looks fake. So let me share my screen. Sorry. Oh, hang on. I will be able to find this. thought I had it right here. Okay. Okay, so there are a lot of poles in the downtown area that need to be, they're weak and they're at risk of falling over, according to Verizon. There are over 100 of them in the downtown area. So they want to put this giant metal splint. And I thought it was really great that our town manager said, you know, find out if the historical commission has any comment. And so I said, well, you know, obviously if the poles are going to fall over, we need to do something. So it's not like we're going to tell you not to fix the poles. So I just wondered, well, how can we really help? So it turned out that how we could help was to, you know, just think a little bit about it. And so we offered a list of questions, which I shared with you in the packet. Now, one of the things that I discovered when I saw, okay, it's this company Osmos, I Googled it. Well, they didn't present this fiber wrap to Nantucket, but they do, Verizon did not present this as an option, but they do make it. And as you can see, it's intended, you know, for areas where you have more aesthetic issues.
That seems a lot better than that galvanized splint that I was looking at.
Absolutely. That's what I was just going to say. For Nantucket and what we're doing here, it's not even a question. I mean, that looks so much better if it's really as good as the metal.
I agree.
You can see it's, you can tell it's fiberglass.
Yeah, but from a distance, Hillary, it's much more aesthetically acceptable.
Correct. It's the right color, everything else. I've
And this-
seen that other stuff and it is ugly as hell.
And even if you paint it, it looks abnormal. But this is streamlined and really sort of works with the lines of the pole.
I mean, if the technology is really there and that fiberglass wrap will do the same thing as the metal. The metal is fail-safe. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, they say it's just as strong. So this is what the metal looks like.
Oh, God, that's awful.
Yeah, see.
Yeah, that's just horrible.
You see
And it also
holes
is
in the
referenced to
downtown
the
area?
old
Oh, wait,
whaling
hang on,
rope.
one person at a time. Holly, what did you want to say?
No, I just wanted to mention that the rope is obviously, not only is it less conspicuous and being kind of out there, but it also has kind of reminds me of the old whaling rope that we're
Oh.
used to seeing in Nantucket. So it would be more. And I also just wanted to, for the benefit of not only the commission, but also the public, with this list that Erica provided of where Verizon wants to do this, there's a lot, I counted almost 100 within the old historic district, in the fish lots, you know, everywhere from Cliff Road, Westminster, Pleasant Street, Fair Street, Charter, Orange. So pretty much everywhere within the old historic districts, obviously, and outside. But having this consistency of this fiber wrap stuff is, I think, would be a good recommendation moving forward.
Okay, Tom, did you want to say something too?
Well, no, I'm totally convinced if we've talked about this, or you want to talk about it some more, but I would make a motion that we recommend that they go with a fiber wrap rather than this trussing option of metal. If she wants to hear from us.
Okay,
I don't know
well,
if
what I can do, I mean, you saw the list of questions, and because we might also say, you know, because the fiber wrap makes the pole bigger and there's accessibility issues with the sidewalk being really small and the poles being big, and some of the poles have these conduits that run up them. There's all kinds of other other technology to, like, Verizon owns the pole, but then Comcast puts all kinds of stuff on it, and other companies put things on it, National Grid. So So in some instances, the pole might already be so wide and the arrow might already be so narrow that we would want the town to say, Verizon, you need to give us a new pole. I mean, because if they couldn't trust the pole, they would be replacing the pole. And so they're trying to save themselves money. So what I'm hearing is that everyone feels like they don't like these metal trusses in sensitive areas. And so I can emphasize to Erica that the commission would like to see the fiber wrap or pole replacement. And then just wait to hear what she says.
Yes.
Yep.
When the upgrade was happening for Pulpus Road and the new poles were going in through town to get out there, that was the concern, was that the poles were taller and wider. And if this is, more discreet than that, it takes up less space. Certainly a wrap looks like it takes up less space than a splint or a truss. So it seems to make sense on every level.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to assume that, but I think we can ask them that, and they might. I also put on the list of questions like, where can we go anywhere other than Nantucket to see these things? So hopefully we'll get answers to all the questions, and I'll let Erica know that there was a very strong interest on the part of the commission to avoid the metal trusses.
And you can see the success in that that treatment is matching the color of the pole.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be something that's just wrapped and forgotten about. And I don't know who does that maintenance, but if it is painted, paint lasts so long.
Oh, is there maintenance? Yeah. See, that's why I think we need to be we need Verizon to educate us a little bit before we make assumptions. Is there maintenance?
That's if that is actually brown. If it was sky blue pink, I wouldn't be in favor of it either.
You don't want it to be an art installation.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. So moving on, the grant application that we made to the CPC to rehabilitate the sidewalks on Main Street, which are very historic and very dilapidated and not accessible. The CPC committee, we made our presentation I think on October 5th was our date. Then we had, our engineers and the Preservation Institute Nantucket, and we had 6 letters of recommendation. Anyway, the CPC met this past week, just a couple of days ago, I think Wednesday, and they voted not to proceed with our request. I don't really know what the whole process is, but anyway, we're out. And I haven't gotten specific feedback. I don't know if any of you have. They didn't contact me. I just happened this morning to see that a recording had been posted, and I listened to it. And Linda Williams was very opposed to this project, vocally against it from the beginning. And there was, I don't remember who, so she made a motion to deny our application. I can't remember who seconded, but Dawn did not support us. And I don't know why. So, yeah, it's a disappointment. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Why don't we ask Ken? He's, he would know.
Yeah.
Hillary?
Yes.
I thought it's a little bit of a catch-22. I mean, they objected. I mean, based on what a conversation you had, they objected to they said, why isn't the town protecting its historic resources more and letting you guys take the ball with this? But on the other hand, the reason the town reconstituted the Nantucket Historical Commission was to start to protect its historic resources in a way that it hadn't done so far. So we, in fact, were carrying out that protection of historic resources. And why they should say that the town isn't doing it so we can't fund you guys, made no sense logically. maybe that's a way we can, there's a way we can address that issue going forward when we deal with it again. I think Mark Beal's question at the meeting was totally, I don't know what he had in mind. I think he had in mind that we were going to recreate brick sidewalks such as they were in front of the Macy warehouse, rather than brick sidewalks as they are now, only safer. And so that seems to be something we will need to clarify. Those are my two takeaways.
I'm not privy to the proceedings, but yeah, the town should invest in it. And if they aren't, if there are other funds that are available, other resources that are available to be able to accomplish this, it really feels like the first sort of comprehensive approach to improving Main Street for accessibility and maintenance. And it is very disappointing. And you have to wonder why there would be any resistance to this at all. It's all preservationists who are involved in it, so it's preservation minded. It's not creating Disneyland. My only suggestion is that if there is any question about it, does it make sense on a very small scale just to take a block and say, this is what we did. This is what the results are. Can we extrapolate this out for the extent of the project that we're looking to do?
Tom?
I'm not privy to the proceeding either, but I have personally been party to an application to the CPC through the Coffin School. And it is a huge and lengthy process just to gather the information that they require. It's a 2-inch 3-ring binder, and plus a CD and all kinds of other stuff. But and I also have attended a meeting and gone through the process with them. This was many years ago. So it is more than just what the people on this board may be aware of. However, with that said, just because of what it is in Nantucket, it a lot of the times has to do with personalities. I'm sorry to say.
I also felt like, so Tom, I mean, we made the application, and just, if I can permit myself to whine a little bit, I killed myself to produce this grant, and Mickey and Georgia know that. And we had, and David also pitched in with a lot of the mechanicals, and it was not a small effort. And I was like, seriously, I just put a lot of time into it.
I understand.
And also our partners. So, Mary Bergman's on the line. She wrote a letter. We had other people writing letters, and we had the Preservation Institute in Nantucket do like a proposal so that we would know what had to be done and how much it would cost. Our partners, SGH, people were so supportive. People on our team, they were so gung-ho. They got on last minute Zoom calls to talk about how we were going to do this. I mean, I kind of feel like the people didn't appreciate, they don't need to appreciate the work, but they didn't appreciate the expertise that we were able to bring around the table to try to fix this really important historic resource. And the fear is that, like, if these sidewalks aren't fixed, they're going to get thrown away. It's a demolition, and by neglect. And that's what happened by the Pacific Club. And that's, what'll happen outside Main Street as well. This commission we won't necessarily always be able to do, what we did to pull this grant together. So, I do, however, also recognize that, you can't win them all. It takes time to bring people around. Tom's point about personalities is really correct. Everything that we've been able to get done, it's because we're doing the work, but we're also doing a tremendous amount of convincing behind the scenes, trying to get support behind the scenes. It's really, really political.
I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, it's really political, and it takes a huge amount of effort for, it's not like anyone's getting paid or anyone's getting any glory. It's just like you get another serving of just the same old stuff. So I see Mary has her hand up.
No, it was me.
Well, I also see Mary. Mary, did you want to say something? And then Georgia?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I watched all the CPC meetings. And I don't, I thought there was a lot going on. But one of the takeaways that I think that this commission could, my unsolicited advice to you, do or try to do is, I was really struck by the commissioner who didn't understand that your goal was to restore the streets to the way that they were originally. And I thought, Hillary, that you did a very good job of explaining. I mean, that story you told about your neighbor is still lingering in my mind. And I thought you did a great job explaining that the way the streets are now is not the way that they were intended to be used. And I find it so interesting that people conflate this idea of like decay with historic preservation. And I'm wondering what can be done, and is this an opportunity for our two organizations to work together to educate people about the fact that nobody would have laid out a street that was pockmarked, that you can't drive down, so anyway, I don't know. That to me was a really frustrating takeaway from those meetings. And I don't know if there's anything that we could do to better educate people about why it is that the streets need to be restored in a sensitive way, but you're also not, your goal is to avoid what happened at the Pacific Club. I thought that was so clear, and I'm surprised that it was not understood better. I don't know.
Yeah. Georgia, thank you, Mary. I really appreciate that. I'm sure everybody does. Georgia?
Yeah, I think Mary is exactly right. That was Mark Beal's point, that he's concerned that what the plan we had in mind was going to make it look like new sidewalks as were done downtown near the Pacific Club and the warehouse, Macy warehouse. So we do have to be clearer in communicating that. What I found disheartening was Linda Williams' attitude of total suspicion. This is what stunned me, that she made a comment that because we listed something at costing $9,400, we were doing it because we knew it would come in under a $10,000 threshold that would have required an RFP or something like that. Oh my God, who even would have thought of that? Who even knew that that was a threshold that we were trying to dodge? I mean, what kind of attitude of suspicion is that? I was really disheartened by that. I mean, you don't even get an assumption of honorability, much less that your goal is to make the streets safer while being historic, not just, to try to get prize money out of the CPC's hands. It's very disheartening. But I do think I agree with Mary. We need a lot of maybe one-on-one discussions about safety and historic preservation going hand in hand. Nobody designed, you did that exactly right, Hillary. Nobody designed these streets 200 years ago to trip elderly people. I mean, they didn't. And that story about Harris Stone is a perfect example. You don't wave your hands at somebody to say hello and fall flat on your face. We just got to publicize that more. Maybe we need more articles in the Inky.
Well, yeah, so where to go from here? I mean, first of all, I think there is an element that, when somebody's new and someone is unknown, they don't have a lot of applications from the town. It's like, to Tom's point, it's a tremendous amount of work to do these things, and the town's not doing them. So they don't know what to make of. So I think there wasn't just one thing, there were, and everybody on the commission had their own thing that they cared about. And in some, certainly in one case, or maybe more than one, it was just like, I don't like this and I don't like these people and I'm not going to vote for it. And there's always going to be that, but it's a big, it's quite a big commission. But I also think we had to contend with this feeling, as somebody, Georgia, I think said, which was explicitly, it was expressed, which is, if it's so important to the town should be funding it. So we really need to get ahead of this issue. And maybe they're right, maybe the next thing we do is go to the town and say, shame on you for not funding this. We need to fix this. This is the most public asset that we have. Everybody uses it. It's a street. Yeah, Mickey?
Well, to that point, this relatively speaking, this is not a huge amount of money for the town to spend on a study to improve,
Right.
Infrastructure. So why can't we pressure the town or the DPW to put this into their budget to do it properly?
Yeah. Well, I think we should make it
along with the Commission on Disability can get involved in that too,
Yeah.
because it's obviously our concern also.
Yeah, I think if we really make, let's look at it this way. The clock starts now. We have 1 year to get this right for next year. And the good news is we've done all of the work to do the grant, so we don't have to do that again, as long as our partners will still want to be part of it. So this is a leg up on next year. And then we have 12 months to do all of the prep work and all of the investigations of the type that Mickey is talking about, and chase down all other opportunities, including, as Angus suggested, maybe we ask to do just a block, and maybe we use this time to have a series of public meetings where people can come in and talk to us about our concerns and the stuff that, we don't really need big dollars for, we just kind of do. So then, this is a community preservation act. So this is, what do people in the community want to spend their money on, not what do 9 people on a committee want to spend their money on. So maybe we go to the community and we have a year to do it. Tom, you had a hand up?
Well, yeah, to tie in what you just said with what we've been talking about, what happened down at the Pacific Club was before we really got going here as a board, and so that, okay, we missed that opportunity. But now that there are a bunch of us here that are really paying attention, and we've tried to do the right thing by going to the CPC, I think what you just suggested in taking this next year and get the public involved, and use our board to get the public involved. That way, you want to put pressure on them. That's the best way I know. It's the public sidewalks and the public's money. So I think we ought to get them to involved in it. Not a bad idea.
Okay. Angus.
It is such a comprehensive project, and the grant was so well written. It was so, I can't believe anyone would have any questions after reading what the proposal was, because it was so in depth and so professional. And it is I would say that one of the single greatest impacts on the town of Nantucket and the island. And it seems like it would be very high on the priority list for the town, for the CPC, for any number of organizations taking care of the island's resources. So maybe it is a town thing, but I'm curious what Holly, you might have to say as a town representative, the preservation planner. What do you advise? What do you think is going on, and what do you think is the best way to proceed?
Well, first of all, I think it was a great presentation, and I apologize I couldn't go to the presentation. I was at a funeral, but I think it's kind of leaning on what Mary was just saying about maybe working together, and what you all are talking about on education. I think education is a big thing. Nantucket, first of all, I've been a proponent for CPC even before it was passed when I was a student at NHS. I was the only one in my family saying, hey, we need to pass this. And I had family members saying, why? Well, these are the reasons why. 2.5% of your taxes are inevitable. They're going to go up. It's Massachusetts, but it's going to things within our Nantucket community that are very important. And I think Nantucket has been very generous in the projects that have moved forward. Nantucket town has not been the one to really ask for funding through this source. There's no reason why we couldn't. And it would be, I think, it would behoove us to find out the specific reasons on why CPC didn't want to move this forward. But having folks, subject matter experts, town people within the town government and the public to be educated on what this entails. It was a very, I think, complex proposal, but in a way it kind of had to be because it is a complex issue. But maybe looking at it from finding out what the specific reasons were, but B, also maybe taking the project and having those subject matter experts with the folks that were there to do the actual legwork, but then make it so it's something that the town itself can budget and follow through a little bit more. Does that make sense a little bit? Because I think it's new. Again, preservation planning. Nantucket obviously has been there when it comes to wanting to protect our architectural heritage since way before the federal government even thought about it. But we've kind of been lacking in the preservation planning aspect. It's an interesting perspective just to think about. I think you have support from those folks, myself included, that gave letters of support. But I think it's really trying to explain why these two commissions are coming together, the Commission on Disability and the Historical Commission, on saying these are the reasons why it's very important. And I think really maybe seeing how, ask Mary, how MPT can help in this effort. Again, I agree. It is important, but maybe trying to get people to understand a little bit better on what exactly it does, what does it mean, and maybe there are procurement laws. I think Georgia, you brought up the fact of procurement. Those are very prescriptive, and yes, there are subject matter experts in here, but making it clear that we're not saying we need to have these folks. We're still going to go through the proper authorities, and maybe there was assumptions there. Seems like there's a lot of different things that were at play. So maybe you're just taking this next year and synthesizing and going through it and figuring out how to make it so it is backed up by not just the community, but the town itself.
Okay, Holly, thank you. I think that's really good advice. And we're now being joined by Dawn. Hi, Dawn.
Hi there. Sorry, I had to come in late.
That's okay. So we are at the point in the agenda where we're getting through all the updates, and I was just letting everybody know that the CPC, of which Dawn is a member, voted not to support our funding our grant. So we summarized that the clock starts now for us. We have 12 months to make another run at it next year and learn, learn what we can learn, everything that we can learn, and take the opportunity to build public support and also investigate other options for funding this important work. But Dawn, I know you did not vote to support our grant, so I'd love to hear from you what the issues were and what we can do better next time.
My take from where it was going with the rest of the CPC was that that they wanted the funding to come from the town, that to show that the town supports it and wants it done.
So did you see we were asked to source, we were directed after our presentation to ask the town if they would fund this. And did you see the reply that Libby gave?
Yes.
Yeah, so she said that if the town were going to do this, they would seek grant funding.
So then it would likely be a joint application. But I'm not sure that the CPC is going to support it. I think that they believe that the town can budget for it.
Okay. Well, that's really important feedback. And obviously we don't care where the money comes from. I mean, but I think it rolls into our next discussion about possible projects, because even beyond this particular resource, the town owns many historic resources. I want to wrap up the discussion about the CPC grant. I think we should talk to different members of the people on this commission who know folks on the CPC. Could you proactively reach out to the people who you know well and have conversations with them? Because it's important to know, we've heard from Dawn, there's other folks who have other opinions. And then I'd like to take all of the feedback and all the discussion and think about the plan over the next, we don't have to start it right away, but let's figure out how to get this done. So the next topic is HDC joint meeting. I emailed, this meeting is scheduled for November 12th. Abby Camp, who is vice chair of the HDC, is going to be traveling to Europe that day. So Holly, I think we have to figure out if we have to reschedule the meeting, because she's the vice chair, part of the leadership group, potentially part of the future leadership of this commission. I'm not saying we have to reschedule it. I just want to make sure you know that she told me she's not available. Angus and I emailed Ray and Abby asking for an agenda planning meeting. Holly, I've noted that you think it would be good to have Pal present. I'd just like to reserve the right to confirm the agenda before any invitations are issued, because we don't have that much time and we really need to plan this meeting with the HDC. And Ray is like, he doesn't respond to emails. So I have gotten no response from Ray. Abby said she's happy to have a agenda planning meeting. We're still waiting to plan our agenda is basically the bottom line about that.
That was just awkward to get that note saying, I like the idea. Yeah, let's do it before the 12th when I leave. And the meeting is on the 12th. So why wasn't that part of the
Maybe she didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe she read it quickly and didn't see that she was traveling during the meeting. So it's still really kind of up in the air. Can we move on to the 2022 work plan? And I'm really happy that Mary Bergman and Dawn are with us to discuss this. So on the agenda, I would like to, sorry, that's at the end. Okay. On the agenda, I have put out a list of possible projects, recommended inquiries, and ideas to develop. And I'd like to just go through them. Possible projects for our next 12 months. The first one relates to the discussion we're having about the CPC, which is a survey and preservation plan for town-owned resources. I would like to propose, and I've talked a little bit with Holly about this, that we prioritize, in addition to our survey work that's happening through our MHC funded partially funded project, that we request some funding for a survey and preservation plan for town-owned resources. And the reason for this is that as the NHC is part of the town. And if the town of Nantucket cannot understand, evaluate, and plan for our own historic resources, which are significant or may be significant, how can we expect other people to? The federal government passed a law that they will not use their own money to adversely affect historic resources that they own. And out of that came the standards that we have from the National Park Service for preservation, technical standards for preservation of historic material. And this is stuff that is invaluable. I mean, information that's invaluable about how you care for our heritage, our national heritage, how you maintain it in its proper condition. So I would like to see the town of Nantucket be a leader in this. And this starts with understanding what we have. So I'd like to have a discussion about that as a priority. I've also suggested that we do some work on archaeology, at least just kind of knowing what we know, what we don't know, and having some sort of prepared idea about how to account for archaeological sites on Nantucket. And then the other project are the Nantucket Historical Commission bylaws. So the Government Study Committee recommended that all commissions review their charter and review their bylaws. And I think that it's important for us to do that too. It's important housekeeping. I'm just going to go through everything and then we can have our discussion. For inquiries, town records. Are there any records to digitize or organize? Anything moldering in binders somewhere that's important for our, that is a town-owned record? I know that the deeds have been very carefully taken care of with CPC funding, actually. Those are in great shape. When I circulated our agenda to our friends group, Brian Pfeiffer wrote and said that this old records of the select board are of a special interest to him as a historian. I don't know what exists, but identifying, you know, these things are perishable, so time's ticking if there are records. So I'd like to make an inquiry about that. Signs on Milestone Road. We passed a bylaw limiting road signs that would make a lot of those signs, of course it doesn't apply to state roads, but it'd make a lot of those signs very clearly not desired by the town, by the voters. So we have a counterpart in the Department of Cultural Resources. I'd like to inquire with that counterparty at the DOT to request if some of these signs could come down to meet our bylaw. Lighting, there's a town-wide interest in switching to LED. Lauren Sinatra is leading it. She's very aware that there are historical issues, but yet we don't seem to have, she hasn't come to us and talked to us about it. So I'd like to just raise our hand about that. Then developing some ideas. We've talked in the past about the small projects loan fund that the town of Arlington has. I've written to Margaretta Andrews expressing an interest that the new fund that came out of the mitigation settlement with Vineyard Wind potentially be a source of seed funding for this small project loan fund. The idea of the small project loan fund is that if you are a homeowner or business owner and you privately own a historic building, this loan is one that you could apply to for a low interest loan. It's a loan, right? So a low interest loan to do repairs to keep your building in good condition. You know, maintenance is cornerstone of preservation. This loan fund has been a public-private partnership in the town of Arlington, Massachusetts for 30 years, self-sustaining, funded originally with a $100,000 community development block grant. So this is an idea to be developed. That fund is not yet established. The criteria for the fund is not yet established, but I think it would be a really lovely thing for the town to help develop. And the last thing is more joint work with the HDC. Obviously, we're going to discuss this in November. I say obviously, but you know, if the chair won't email me back and the vice chair is not available when we schedule meetings, I mean, I'm frankly not feeling very good about. Yes, Holly, I see your hand up.
I emailed Abby and asked her, and she actually just emailed me back and said, sorry about that she could actually zoom in from Florence. And I said, if you can confirm that you can zoom in while you're away, that would be most appreciated, because I really don't want to move the date out. We've, you know, there's a lot of planning it to go around with that. So that's good news.
That's
Just
great.
wanted
And
to
that's
know.
really kind of Abby as well. And
Yes.
really appreciate her commitment. Thank you, Holly. Can you email Ray and ask him to agree to an agenda planning meeting?
Yes, he was copied on the email, so I'm waiting for a response.
Okay, me too. So some of the things that we've talked about with the HDC, you know, clarifying our two roles, clarifying how we can help each other, hoping to feel that we can work collaboratively. And then of course, if we can't work collaboratively, then we decide what we want to do about that. Some of the issues that we've talked about are problems with demolition. At our last meeting, we discussed the observation that there's not a clear, well-defined process to evaluate whether or not a building is preferably preserved. So these are the work plan ideas. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot, but I need to also tell you that I did meet with, I took advantage of the office hours to meet with town council. Erica was in that meeting as well, and I met with John Giorgio, and I asked him about our membership and bylaws. And what I found out was that when the voters adopted the Massachusetts general law for towns to have a historical commission, which provides for a historical commission of 5, of no less than 3 and no more than 7 people, with a possibility for alternates, the town actually specified 5 members. Then the chair of the historical commission, Deborah Timmerman, asked for it to be expanded to 7, and the select board granted that. Then the chair asked for there to be alternates added, and the select board extended that as well. So John Giorgio suggested that it would be prudent for us through a warrant at town meeting to officially change the number to 7, because 7, I think, is a great number for our commission, and we're lucky that we have as many volunteers. So I would like to do that. The other question are the alternates. So Barbara, I'm so happy that you are an alternate. Everyone is so happy that you are an alternate, and I'm very happy that you're here. But the fact is that our commission, I'd like to hear our commission. The problem is our commission doesn't really need alternates. We need support. We need people to be involved, but we don't have a problem with a quorum, and we don't have a huge meeting schedule that a lot of people have to miss. And we don't have, regulatory decisions where the lack of a quorum is a problem. I happen to know that Ben Norman is not going, he hasn't been able to come to meetings, and he's let me know that he's not planning to reapply when his term expires. It's a lot of work to have to go around and find people to fill alternate positions. It's, takes up time on the agenda for the select board to appoint them. So I discussed with John Giorgio if we decided that we wanted to just be 7 members and no alternates, but we certainly didn't want to ask our alternates to leave before their term is up. I mean, we would hate to lose Barbara. What to do. And he said, well, you would just say, include in the bylaw that you wouldn't have alternates, and existing alternates would finish their term. So I wondered what people thought about that. Barbara, I hate to put you on the spot, and I certainly don't want you to feel unappreciated, because you really are a contributor to our meetings.
Well, I've just begun, so I think, speaking as an alternate, it's really nice to kind of tiptoe into this. And because I don't feel at all up to speed yet, so I can say that that's a good role. I know on the cemetery commission, I just dove right in, and it took about a year to catch up. So I don't really have a comment.
Okay, Tom?
I'd like to ask Barbara, would she consider becoming the 7th commissioner just outright? Once the alternate status, if it actually is eliminated, comes to be.
Well, I always sort of thought that was the goal for me, like start as an alternate see if I liked it, and then apply.
I think we'd all agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the commission is fully appointed with 7 people right now, but there's going to be times when people say, you know what, I need to take a break. I just can't keep doing this. I mean, the Clement and I, we have our terms up in 2022. So it's I would have a preference for going through the town meeting process to make our commission 7 people and no alternates, and have the existing alternates simply finish their terms and, you know, apply for seats on the commission as they open up. Because it's really hard to get so what happens is, you know, Susan Handy is really valuable on the commission because she's an archaeologist, and she's like the only archaeologist who's living on Nantucket, and she's important to have on the commission, but she can't come to a lot of meetings. And, you know, I think there is a sense also when you're an alternate, oh, well, you know, I'm not a commissioner. So, and we have our friends group, and I know that I can reach out to the friends group and say, look, we really need you, you know, and Mary is part of our friends group and she's great about attending. So I'd like to ask, Clement, go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking that I would agree with you on that. I think 7 is there's a lot of work to do on this commission, as you've all noticed, especially when you're doing a CPC grant. And I'd just like to congratulate all of you in your grant and just say that I'm stunned at the results, but I'm not going to revisit that. But I do think it would be wonderful, like Barbara's saying, if you can start out as an alternate, and then, you know, I guess you would have to reapply. I would like to think that it just within the next round, if an alternate could automatically be bumped up to take a commissioner who is not renewing, that would be ideal. And that would be within the next year, but then to have the commission continue with a 7-person team with no alternates. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Clement. So just so everybody's clear about what I'm asking for, and it sounds like Clement agrees, we have our update to the select board on Wednesday. Erica told me I could get her something by Monday to put in the packet, so nothing's currently in the packet. But, you know, so the bylaw change, what John Giorgio said is that we would be asking for a motion to amend the 2005 town meeting action to have our commission be 7 with no alternates, and that existing alternates would finish their terms. That would be the motion. And I think I would ask the select board to make this motion, Dawn, because the other option is to do it as a citizen's warrant. But Dawn, do you have a comment about how to do this? Can we ask the select board for a to do this as a motion? Dawn. I think Dawn is probably on the phone or something else.
While
Does
we're waiting
anybody-
for Dawn, I was just going to say, I can appreciate Barbara's perspective of sort of dipping your toe into a board by being an alternate and then sort of working your way up, seeing if it's the right fit. And a number of the boards I'm with, there are alternates, but often there's a concern about a quorum, and I believe you're correct in stating that we really haven't had, thank goodness, an issue with reaching a quorum. You know, most of the board is committed to showing up for each meeting. So yeah, I'm a little bit torn. It's nice to have a little bit of leeway, but you know, a streamlined, committed board might be more effective. So yeah, I guess I could go either way.
Okay. Holly?
It's a general law. So I would, yeah, I think you can do that. I think you can ask the select board to, I'm trying to think, because anything that has to do with zoning and that goes obviously through the planning board. Everything that is non zoning wise and zoning actually go to finance. So as long as, I mean, maybe it's a time to bring it up. I don't know when a good time would be bringing it up. I mean, now is going to be the start of the conversations for next town meeting. But yeah, I would say that the town should be starting this and not a citizen warrant article. That would make sense. And I would also say that, you know, people are going to want to know, maybe it's just to clarify why the reasons for it. And I think it's very clear. You've already said it, Hillary, is you all are not a regulatory board. You don't need alternates to make sure votes are done. If you look at the attendance of everybody, we've pretty much had, even with Zoom, everybody in attendance, maybe a couple of people that haven't been able to show up or had to drop off during the meeting. But for the most part, everybody's there and there really hasn't been any quorum issues. I think those particular facts back up what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay. Thank you, Holly. And Dawn has also said in the chat that she's sorry that she's on a call, but she says, I'm fine with the suggestion to eliminate alternates after their term. And I just want to share with you the exact language that John Giorgio, our town council, said. He said the article would read, to see if the town would vote to amend the vote taken under Article 32 of the April 13, 2005 annual town meeting by establishing the Nantucket Historical Commission consisting of 7 members in accordance with Chapter 40, Section 8D. There shall be no alternate members of the Historical Commission. As the current terms of alternate members expire, no additional alternate members shall be appointed. That's what the language would be. So I would go ahead and ask the select board to include that in their warrant. And Erica's already familiar with this because she was part of the conversation with John Giorgio. Okay, great, thank you. Any further discussion on that? No, and I'll let Susan know. But it's really just Ben whose term is expiring, and I've already talked with him and he's fine with this. Okay, the other thing I discussed with John Giorgio was to get advice about the demolition delay. We don't want to have demolition delay for historic buildings because we already have a historic district commission that can stop demolitions. But I explained to him this concept of preferably preserved. This is all continuing the discussion that we had at our last meeting. And he advised that if we wanted to have a concept of preferably preserved, a determination made by the Historical Commission to be part of the process that had to be satisfied before a permit could be issued, that we could do that. We could bring a warrant, we could bring an action to town meeting, and town meeting could decide to do that. That it could be done either through the zoning bylaw, which is currently where we have demolition delay. It's in the zoning code. It could also be done through a general bylaw. The advantage of doing it through a general bylaw is that it passes with 50%. And this is what Mary brought a couple years ago and then pulled. I currently believe that this is a discussion that has to happen with the HDC. The HDC needs to welcome it and needs to feel that it's valuable. Because of course, if we make a determination that a building is perfectly preserved and the HDC decides not to care, or they decide not to even tell us, I mean, there's a lot of monitoring that has to happen. We really haven't achieved our goal. It's not implementable. So it was useful to have John Giorgio's opinion. I'm sorry, I always say talk about him as if his first name is John Giorgio, but that's his full name. So it was helpful to have John's opinion about this. And I think it's something to maybe communicate to the HDC and have as an agenda item if they agree. So that's my download to you. I'm sorry to be talking so much, but I just really need to tell everybody about the conversation with town council about these two items. And now we've been through the possible projects. So about the town-owned historic resources survey, archaeology, bylaws, we've dealt with some of that and made a decision that we're going to ask about our composition, the inquiries, and development. I guess I'm suggesting that this be our work plan for the year. So let's have some discussion about the work plan for the year. Anybody want to go through the list and give their opinion about it? I'd like to hear from everybody. Tom, can we start with you? Do you have it in front of you or shall I share the screen?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, let me share the screen. This packet. Here it is. Share. Okay. So this was my suggested work plan.
Right.
That we do, we figure out how to get a preservation plan for town-owned historic resources done. We figure out, we do a little bit of work on archaeology, exploring, recognizing native lands and liaising with the tribes. And we review our bylaws. We're going to ask the select board to deal with our composition, but there are other bylaws too that we might want to have, that we make these inquiries and that we develop these two ideas here.
Things that jumped out at me were the archaeology and exploration of the native lands under the inquiries, the town records, and seeing what else there is there. In terms of the development, I think the small projects kind of thing with the Arlington model, I did a lot of reading about that, and there's a lot to that actually when you really get into the reading of it. I don't know if everybody did or not, but there were pages and pages of that stuff. And it depends on how the HDC feels about working with us, and I think it's going to be critical to see what happens on November 12th. That's all my comments.
Tom, are you in favor of the idea of this survey of town-owned resources and preservation plan
Very
being
much so.
bumped up to the top?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Mickey?
Yeah, I'm perfectly in favor of all of these suggestions. I was thinking that we'd be talking about this, the town town meeting warrant articles, but I could see that's later on the agenda. So that's probably separate topic. But yeah, I think the list is good.
Okay. Yeah, I put this up because we keep not getting to it. So, Angus, thoughts on our work plan?
I think these are all great initiatives, and I'm glad to see that the survey is at the top of the list, because I feel like that's the cornerstone stone of our commission. And so we want to pursue that every avenue that we can. I can't help but to think about, the reaction to our grant proposal, as we're talking about, surveying and preservation. But there are also things that, every day have an impact. And I can't help but to think about the lighting, in town, certainly on the Milestone, these new bright lights, especially at intersections that are blindingly bright. I feel like they're concerns that you have to dig a little deeper to really experience, but there are other ones that are literally in your face every day. So I'm happy with all of these.
Okay. Is there anything else that you feel like isn't on the list that needs to be on the list? That's really a question for everybody, but I'll ask you, Angus, since you're speaking now.
No, I mean, there are always things, but I feel like this is a good list for now. I feel really motivated about the joint work with the HTC, and hopefully we get a response from the chair and can move forward with that. I feel like the guidelines were really important, and they were acted on and recognized and known by the commissioners and generally everyone in the trades, 30 years ago. But I feel like less and less and so that's the work that's really important to me. That I'm interfacing with every week. And so I feel like there's a lot of work, not just updating, but also recognizing the guidelines.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Mickey, sorry, did you want to say something else? I saw.
Well, I was, I'm hesitantly bringing up the concept of zoning. It's a big topic, but specifically the commercial downtown zoning has always concerned me that it doesn't seem to really agree with the existing conditions in that core district. And I'm not sure if there's a way of really dealing with that or addressing it or bringing up is a question, but to me, it's a big part of the, it affects the streetscape, the downtown historic streetscape. And how do we try to get that particular zoning to align a little bit more closely with what we actually want, I think.
Right. So let me explain that preservation planning it's like an ongoing responsibility that we have. So that's why it's not listed as a project. It's not like it doesn't mean we're not going to do that. But these were like discrete projects that we can make as for this past year, we had the Arthur Cooper Monument and the NAREB education as discrete projects that we worked on to get done. So that's kind of if that makes sense. It's not like we're not going to do zoning because it's not on that list. That's just kind of a given. So that's why we have it on as the next agenda topic. Okay, so we haven't heard from Clement and David and Barbara about this list of projects and inquiries and things to develop.
Well, I'll go ahead and say that I mean, obviously, I think the survey of the town, I don't want the town to think that we're stepping on their toes, but they're not doing their survey. I think they would appreciate our making this an effort to do the survey plan for the town-owned resources. I don't see anybody doing anything for archaeology. I would love to explore that more. I think that's fascinating. Also, I don't know if the pool issue can be bumped up. I think it's, the same, similar to the lighting issue, in that the lighting affects more than just switching to LED. I mean, it affects everybody And also the pools, it's not just the fact that you have a pool in the ground, but it's what surrounds the pool and how you have to screen the pool and how that affects the historic nature of the area. So those two kind of go together in my mind.
Okay.
And the small loan fund, I think, would be fabulous to get going. That would help a lot of people in a lot of various places. So I think it's a great list, Hillary.
Okay, great. David.
I kind of agree with everything that Clement said. I really think that exploring archaeology in a little bit more detail sounds very interesting and something that we haven't really done quite yet. So I'm excited about that. Also, the small loan fund, I think, is something that we should explore and continue to develop and look into. So I'm excited about that as well. And the lighting, I think, is important too. I also, just given the outcome of the CPC, I wonder if, I know that these are kind of sidebar conversations that we're having, smaller projects that we're looking into, but I'd love to continue to hammer home outreach and education. I think that's just the biggest thing. I know that we've got the preservation exhibit and the NARAB course pushed to the spring, but I don't think you can do enough. Holly's always telling us about all the education opportunities in her staff updates. And I think that if we can put those up on the website, send them out to some of our constituents, I think the more that we're kind of keeping the pulse on the conversation and staying up to date with new legislation, I think is really going to set us up for success for next year's round.
Yeah. And the reason why, so I consider the streetscape rehabilitation to be part of town-owned historic resources preservation plan. So the thought is that if we actually do this preservation plan for the town, the street will be one of the town-owned historic resources that's listed in the plan. So then when we go to seek funding for it, we'll be able to say, we have this, master plan for Nantucket's town-owned preservation, town-owned historic resources. And these are the things that are what we understand to be the historic resources of the town. We've had a public process, professional process to make a preservation plan for the town of Nantucket. And we've included the town, like all town administration. So then when we seek to preserve these things, we can refer back to this robust process of creating a preservation plan and all the things that are included in it. Okay, Barbara, comments on our 2022 work plan projects?
It looks very ambitious. I'm interested in a lot of aspects, especially for me, as my own little wheelhouse is the digitization of town records, because they are getting pretty worn. I'm in the town meeting records a fair amount. But yeah, it's all very interesting.
Okay, well, I'll reach out to you about that one, because the first thing to start with is what do we have? And yeah, great. Okay, did I hear from everybody? Dawn, do you have any comment on our work plan, or Holly? Do you have any comment on our work plan?
I just wanted to mention that, yes, I do agree with Barbara that it is very ambitious, but nothing's to say that we cannot have a plan and move things. That's how planning works. So as far as the town-owned historic resources, I'm obviously a big proponent of that. Preservation plan, I'm a big proponent of that. I also do want to mention, I do have some information from the state, which I can send to everybody to kind of get there. Again, I'm big on education, as David had mentioned, about preservation plans. One of the things that I really learned from Chris Skelly, who is at the who is our CLG rep before he retired with the state, is preservation plans come in all shapes and sizes. You can have obviously a big robust plan, but obviously our survey plan that we're going to be embarking on is going to be its own form. of preservation plan. So that's actually going to start to get the ball rolling for our surveys. I'm obviously a big proponent on that. With the archaeology, that Nantucket, obviously, as you're aware, we don't have our own bylaw on archaeology. It's always been something that the state has been taking care of along with the tribes. I will mention that the tribes are very territorial in their information. So that's also going to be a challenge to what they would be willing to divulge in information. But obviously kind of having a mutual understanding and, you know, I think having a communication with the tribes would be very important. They're more engaged with the vineyard, I think, than Nantucket. So yeah, I think that would be great. I'm interested to seeing, you know, on the inquiry side, what town records we would be able to. I know that our former town clerk, Ms. Stover, I miss her quite a bit. She did a lot of work on that within obviously the town clerk's office. Is how would we be doing that? How would it be funded? You know, I know there's all sorts of different grants and stuff that come across my desk from a preservation and perspective. I'm just curious from a town side how we would be paying for that. As far as the lighting goes to LED, I think it would be a good idea to request Lauren's involvement as far as coming to a historical commission meeting. I think she'd be more than happy to do that. Her and I work very closely on a lot of different aspects. And I think she would want to have this historical commission's input. So yes, definitely, I would like to see that moved up a little bit higher in the priorities. The small projects loan fund, of course, you know, we need to see how the funding process goes with the wind farm. But at the end of the day, I think you're going to find a lot of interest with having just folks that are out there on Nantucket. I'm thinking of elderly people who have an older home, who don't have the funds to be able to even update their, you know, just even shingling, for instance, or taking their existing historic windows and having them restored properly instead of having somebody come into the HDC to request to have them replaced. That I'm a big proponent on that. So there is a lot of stuff here. Maybe we want to think about taking the projects and saying these are short term and these are long term projects. But I'm good. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Holly. And that's why some of them are inquiries, like we're not really ready to work on them. We need more information and development. I mean, we would need to know that there would be a source to seed fund the loan fund. I think potentially this wind farm mitigation fund would be that, but that's not there yet, so we can't apply to it. But in the meantime, like we could reach out to banks because we need to have a bank administer it, so we could do some development work. So okay, well, I'm hearing from everybody that this looks good. No comments to change anything, and we just need to turn this into an actual work plan. So expect to see that in future meetings. Barbara, expect a call from me about the inquiry on the town records. Holly, I will definitely be reaching out to Lauren to invite her to a meeting. And thank you for suggesting that. The signs on Milestone Road, I mean, in the past, Andrew Vorse has written to the state to request that signs come down. So I think what I'll do is write to Jeff, I'm forgetting his last name, at the DOT, who's our counterparty in the Cultural Resources Unit, and let him know about this bylaw and just get his advice, because I think we should go through Cultural Resources, and maybe he could take the request. But we're going to make it. It's under inquiry, so we're going to make the inquiry. Okay, can we move on? Great. All right, so the next thing is ATM action. So I want to update you on where the citizens warrant is about the pool issue. I'm gonna suggest that we write a letter. So I have heard from Ann Duez. That's not it. I need to find this and I will share the screen once I get it open. Just bear with me. There was a hearing at the select board this past Wednesday. Did anybody get to listen to or watch the hearing or see the recording of the hearing? Does anybody want to update the commission on that while I find this document?
I don't know if I can do an update, but I will say that you did a bang up job in defending it, and it seemed to have a positive effect.
Thanks, Tom. The board voted to uphold the HDC's opinion or denial of this application to put a 10 by 10 foot spa in a lot at the corner of North Mill and Prospect. Yeah, I spoke on behalf of the commission reflecting our previous conversations. But really, I mean, all of these appeals are, so we're not always agreeing with the HDC, right? But in this case, you know, we agree with the HDC, and it's about defending the ability of the HDC to have the authority to determine whether something is appropriate or not when it's visible. When it's visible, and what constitutes visibility is also increasingly becoming an issue. Clement mentioned the problems of the screening with the pool. You know, is it okay? I don't think anybody would say, well, if you want to go ahead and build a white house with a flat roof and a circular stair out front, you can build it, you just need to screen it. You know, I don't think anybody would say that. You just need to make it not visible, and then it's okay. So if it's obvious to everybody that that's not okay to build, you know, like Le Corbusier, Villa Savoy, and put a wall in front of it, then why would they say, well, it's okay to have a swimming pool visible from a public way, and you just need to put, you know, a hedge in front of it, which is not a permanent solution and not a robust solution. So, you know, I think if the applicant continues to appeal the denial, they'd appeal it to the courts, and town council during the select board meeting said, you know, there could be an important decision that would come out of that about what constitutes visibility. And I agree that that's a really important issue. And it would really be helpful to have some kind of clarification. Tom?
You know, there's several issues about that. I'm only going to speak to one of them. I just think that some of those things that when you mention visibility, it has to do with the quality of life. You know, it's just the noise, the human noise, the lighting that's involved with it, the mechanical noise that's involved with it, the environmental issue that's involved with it, and the historical integrity in the old historic district. And none of that seems to matter.
Well, those are not HDC issues, though. Those are the zoning issues. And that's a perfect segue, Tom, to what I have up on the screen right now. Can you all see this draft, a limitation on hot tub spas and pools in the historic district? So this is
Where I was going with that.
Yeah, you guys can see it, right? So this is a draft of a citizen's warrant that Ann Duez is working on. She shared it. She came to our meeting last week, and there was unanimous and quite vigorous support for her warrant. And she sent this to me and asked me to share it. She's going to be bringing this to the planning board next Monday. I think it's next Monday, whenever the next planning board meeting is, to get the feedback from the planning board. And she hopes that the planning board will support it. So I'll summarize that what she's suggesting is a change in the definition of swimming pools. To align with a change in the definition of spas. So maybe we'll start with spas. So currently, a spa is defined as anything equal to or less than 100, anything less than 150 square feet, period. So she's suggesting that the definition be changed to be a maximum of 36 square feet, so 6 by 6. And that the gallonage also be included, that it can't be more than 1,000 gallons because the volume of water has an impact on the neighborhood. Then to align with swimming pools, she's suggesting obviously that swimming pools be, well, look, it has to be, if it's for recreational swimming and lounging, it's either a spa or a pool. So the definitions have to make sense together, which is not currently the case. So anything that's bigger than a spa is therefore a pool. There's no in between. So obviously a pool is bigger than these, more than 1,000 gallons and more than 36 square feet. Furthermore, she is then going to an either or. So the voters at town meeting will have to choose to either amend the use chart to say that a spa, it already says a swimming pool is not an allowed use in the old historic district or Sconset historic district, and that we would add spa as not an authorized use, or the voters, someone would need to make a motion for one of these, or the motion could be to allow, swimming pools are still not allowed. Spas are allowed only by special permit. So the choice is either to have spas not be allowed at all in old historic districts, and or to have spas by special permit. But of course, now a spa cannot be 100 and it can't be, 15 by 15, 15 by 10. It's got to be 6 by 6. So that's currently, and this is based on, prior warrants about swimming pools. It models that language. She's got this, explanation about the history, about how these spas sort of snuck in. And that this is kind of housekeeping because the intention was to not have to have this disruption for all the reasons Tom and others have mentioned. So the question for us is, do we send a letter to the planning board saying that we've discussed this and, we support this action for reasons of historic integrity of our historic districts? Or any further comments? Tom?
I'm in favor of sending a strong letter to the planning board backing up what you just said.
Okay. Any questions or comments about the warrant or feedback to Anne that we want to give?
Now, my comment is just make sure Anne has gotten it. I mean, I feel like maybe she should choose I think her proposition should be clear one way or the other. And then we can write the strong letter that we support her proposition, but I feel like it should be not this, that. She should spell it out specifically.
That's a good point, Clement.
I think she's torn. She doesn't want to be the one to tell everybody in the historic district, you can't have like a health spa. You can't have, your hot tub that you need because you have like sciatica.
Yeah.
You have sciatica and you need it.
That was how all of this got wishy-washy in the first place, because they said that they could be allowed by special permission, and then all of a sudden special permission meant nothing. But by saying 6 by 6, that's wonderful to get so small. It's almost the size of a shed, but you still have to have the screening. I assume you have to have the screening. You also have, I feel like we're forgetting that this is a body of water that little people can fall into. I worry about that a lot. So the screening or the insurance of keeping everybody out of the water, those are all very important. You can't just have a cover that covers it when you're not using it. I see a lot of those where the pools are still open. So I worry about that. But
Okay.
I think we're all here on the same page that we want to limit pools and or spas as much as possible. At least I do.
So are you in favor of a ban of spas, changing the definition and then banning them in the historic districts?
I would be, yes.
Okay. Holly, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I was curious, and I just really just focused on the change of the hot tub spa section of what you just showed up. But I'm curious if Anne is working with a local attorney on this, or she's just doing it on her own. Just curious, because if it's just really this area, and I understand the intention of being focused in on this part of the old historic district, it's almost as if there needs to be a conversation on whether or not this needs to be treated as a special permit. Because once you change the definition within the bylaw, it's being affected for everywhere, or the intention is to actually have it affected for everywhere. I'm just curious on if that part has been thought out, fleshed out. That's all.
I can't really speak for Anne. I don't know what she's doing. I know that she did talk to Jean Giorgio, and the version that we're seeing is from, consulted with Jean Giorgio. So Holly, I have a question for you, because you were you know a lot about this. It's not a preservation planning issue, but it's an issue you know a lot about. So spas are, a spa, regardless of its size, would be by right in every zone. Let's assume that spas are not allowed, or are only allowed by special permit in the old historic district. Everybody else can just apply for a spa, or they can just apply for a swimming pool. There's no limitation, like you can only have one pool. Pools don't count for ground cover. So if you have a property in Pulpus and you want to have, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and you want to have a 10 by 10 foot spa, basically you'd be having two swimming pools under this definition. Does that matter? Do you have any problem with your building permit?
Well, I can't sit here and speak for how the building department reviews. I mean, they're looking at the zoning bylaw, but you got to remember that that does go before the HDC. The HDC will give comments, just like anything else that's not visible. They do give comments on the size and the location, and I mean that happens all the time. There's a give and take that I can see, and anecdotally as staff and just listening to the conversation for something that's not located within the old historic district, there is a conversation between the commissioners on that. Is it appropriate to have this huge pool within this location, even though it's not visible? Sometimes there's requests to reduce it by a certain fee. So yeah, but again,
I'm just wondering if her change makes any difference. Like, does it have,
Right.
and my view is it has zero effect on anyone except the people living in the OHD or SOH. And I'm asking if that's true.
Yeah, if it's written to completely not allow them within the old historic, then yes, that right is taken away. Yes.
Is there any unintended consequence for people outside the old historic districts?
As long as the use chart is clear, that's where that is important, that it's clear where it's been. Just like how pools are handled within the VR districts, which is mostly Nantucket, for instance. It's very clear in the zoning bylaw within the use chart and the definitions that they have to go through a special permit in order to even have it. So it's not technically a by right, you actually have to get that special permit. So that's just, those are the things that I was just curious on. If the intention really and truly is this area, or is it all of Old Historic District, or is it the entire island? So it sounds like that's the way that she's proposing this, is to completely disallow it within the Old Historic District, and then also reducing the size is what I'm understanding.
Yeah, and that's just definitional and kind of, you know, kind of not really not, it doesn't change anything that somebody could do. It just what, you know, somebody would technically have 2 swimming pools if they want to have a, you know, a pool, something that's bigger than the definition of the spa. Any other
Again,
comments? Oh,
I just want to mention that again, the definition is really focused with the review at zoning level with the building department. And it's clear, I think, with HDC reviews. Again, that's zoning.
okay. Any other comments on the idea of our writing a letter, and if we should say we support a ban? If we, you know, Clement has said she would like to see a ban on spas. There's already a ban on pools. She wants to see a ban on spas in the historic districts. Does anybody else want to articulate a preference? Or please do, please do articulate a preference.
I think that we should go with the full ban, because otherwise we're leaving it up to the zoning board of appeals. If we give the option of approving one or not, it's going to end up being at the zoning board of appeals, and then it's just, then they have just another opportunity to get a spot through. So that's a variable. I think we want to be more clear.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Okay, Tom is for a ban.
So in favor of a ban.
David is in favor of a ban.
I am
Angus?
as well. There have been loopholes, and it's like nobody did the math, or maybe they did to be able to get the loophole. But if you did 150 square feet, 10 by 15, the pool would have to be less than a foot deep. You know, so it's, you know, to meet the 1,000-gallon requirement. So it none of it adds up to really be effective. So I think the objective is to not have them. So I'm in favor of
Okay,
not having them.
and no one is swayed by the person who says, oh, my pancreas, I need my hot tub. My sciatica, I need my hot tub. And you know, I live on Pine Street, or I live on wherever. I mean, I'm not speaking about anyone in particular. A little
They can use their
family humor. What? They can use their indoor hot tub. Yeah, that's a very good point. That is an excellent point, Mickey. Yeah, okay. All right, well, I am also in favor of a ban. So then we will send a letter. We will let the planning board know that we're in favor of banning spas in the Old Historic District for reasons of quality of life, privacy, historic integrity, and encouraging people to have jacuzzi bathtubs in their bathrooms. And I think we decide what we're going to do. Any other comments? No. Okay, great. Other possible letters, working with the planning board and the NP and EDC. We already talked about reviewing the NHC charter. Other possible ATM actions. So Mickey brought up CDT zoning and his concern about CDT zoning. So did anybody have a chance to review the draft of the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee report? It was 400 pages.
I didn't know 400 pages.
Okay, so I read it and I gave comments to Mary. I think I sent them to you. Did I send them to you?
You did.
Oh, okay. And this is a huge, huge issue and concern for planning. So the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee has engaged Arcadis in, I think, $100,000 year-long engagement. There's been huge community outreach. It's a really robust process. They've had many public meetings. and it's still in draft form. They are explicitly recommending in these high priority areas, which includes a good part of the commercial downtown, a high priority being at risk of flooding, at high risk of damaging flooding by 2030. That the town reduce intensity, adopt natural, I'm doing this from memory, so I'm sorry, adopt natural flood prevention interventions, and in fact plan for protective flood prevention methods. And so the idea that the planning board would be promoting, and the select board would be promoting intense commercial downtown zoning and development of Harbor Place with commercial downtown zoning, when this area is going to be inundated within the next 10 years, regularly inundated. And it's not just like, oh, it's a waste of money. I mean, you've got like petroleum down there, you've got, you know, flood insurance issues, you have disruption to infrastructure that is, you've got potential physical harm because you're putting people in harm's way with developing this area. So I don't see how, I mean, this needs to be addressed. You've got one group that is charged with resiliency, making a recommendation to another group, which is charged with zoning, that, you know, they need to go in a certain direction, which is about reducing development rights. So certainly I think, so what the agenda item that I put down was working with the planning board and the NP and EDC as the preservation planning committee. The suggestion that I had was that we send a letter, you know, a formal letter to these groups saying that we'd like to be a part of their discussions for preparation of actions for town meeting. And we know that Harbor Place and the conversion to CDT zoning is on the, you know, certainly on the radar screen for an action at town meeting. And we'd like to be invited into those discussions, and they should certainly expect that we're going to, you know, give them our opinion, if whether it's invited or not. It's part of our responsibility as having been authorized as an independent commission by the voters of Nantucket to weigh in on these things. Comments about how we can express ourselves to our colleagues?
You have to make sure that if we're sending a letter wanting to be involved in the discussion, obviously our concerns are historical, the character of the town and the appearance and the feel of it. So, I mean, and that's, I think, what we have to stress in this letter is that we're not talking about resiliency, we're not talking about flooding, we're talking about the historical character, because that's our expertise. So.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, and that has to take into consideration the flooding, because as at least Mickey and I have seen in the applications in the downtown that are affected by flooding, the raising of structures, and there are sensitive ways of doing that and not. I mean, you can't just like take the existing house and just hike it up 5 feet. It's that there's stuff that that you have to think about, and I think zoning needs to take all that into consideration.
Holly, what's your recommendation to us?
No, thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, first on Angus's point, that's why we have Resilient Nantucket. You know, if there's any way that this commission can help emphasize our design guidelines that have been adopted by the HDC formally in June on specifically that flooding and adaptation of our National Historic Landmark District, from not just structures, but also, you know, everything in between, based on the National Park Service's standards that just came out, that would be helpful. My whole goal through this whole project with the Coastal Resiliency Plan was making sure that there was that connectivity. There's some things that need to still be fleshed out, but I wanted to mention that this coastal resiliency plan is still in draft format, and there's going to be some changes to it. So if you have not been able to even just take a portion, because yes, it's very daunting, but just take a portion, look at it, and I would recommend having that preservation lens on there. As far as providing, yes, I mean, having a seat at the table with discussions and making sure that it's preservation focused is important. So thank you, Mickey, for bringing that up. That is important. I'm not too sure where, what the next steps are. But yes, those are all going to pay into play. But I mentioned that the coastal resiliency plan, it has a lot of stuff in it, a lot of different stuff, from recommendations that are kind of far-fetched in a way, with relationships to, say, for instance, you looked at this proposal of having this hard armor within the harbor. That in for itself is going to require DEP, Army Corps, and all sorts of different things that may not even come to fruition. But obviously looking at how we're going to have development, and not just that, but also the protection of our coastal historical resources. You know, moving structures should be, from a protection perspective, from natural resources, should be the last resort. So of course, green infrastructure is very important. That's one thing that Vince and I were very much stressing with our consultants, Arcata. So there's a lot in here. I'm glad that this is just being discussed with you all. It should be. I hope you've been able to take a chance to look at portions of it. But yeah, I'm not too sure what the next steps would be, especially with what's going on with Harbor Place and what is happening right now with this, I guess the deconstruction of the tanks have stopped. So who knows? I have no idea on that.
Okay, thank you, Holly. So I mean, what I'm hearing is that we should send just a letter kind of saying, hi, planning board, hi, NPNEDC, you know, we'd like to be involved with your discussions. In the past, we had a joint meeting. We'd like to have another joint meeting. And that we will be, you know, weighing in on conversations regarding historic preservation interest. Tom?
Yeah, I have to leave fairly soon myself, but I was really hoping to get to the review of the NHC charter before I left. Is there any way we could pick that up?
Oh, well, the charter for the NHC, we're going to make a request that the select board adjust our membership.
Okay.
And so what I just wanted, I actually, honestly, I can't really remember what the letter was. I guess it's just a request to the select board that we adjust our membership. And then we're gonna have to think, we don't have bylaws. So if we want to have any kind of operating, any guidance, any you know, operating laws, it could say, for instance, that you know, we want to meet with a planning board once a year in a joint meeting. You know, it could say lots of different things, but that would be up to us to write our own bylaws. It was recommended by the Government Study Committee that all commissions review their charter and their bylaws. I did find out from John Giorgio that our charter is simply the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8D. We don't have another charter. I didn't know if we had another charter, so I can tell you definitively that we don't.
It would be interesting to see how everybody else on the commission feels about, you know, having a charter and getting bylaws. I mean, that might be a short discussion at the next meeting. Yeah. I've got to go, but thank you. Good to see you all.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, it's 12 o'clock now. The only last thing is the update to the select board. So the update to the select board is just going to talk about what we've done. And then I'll brief them on our, 2022 work plan that we decided. We can ask them for, direction about things they'd like to see us working on. Does anybody have other comments for the select board before we adjourn?
I think the idea of the update is I mean, the update is great. The idea of asking if there's anything that they would like us to focus on, I think is a nice outreach.
Okay. And I think I'll also ask them, for their support with this survey and preservation plan for town-owned resources. We want them to understand. We want to hear, if there's a reason why they don't want us to do it, we certainly want them to tell us.
Right. We don't want to get stuck in a loop. I mean, everybody knows that it's either the town or the CPC. So, how do you want us to do this? Because it's something that is that we need to move forward.
Okay. David or Mickey, any comments about the update to the board?
Not really.
Okay. Well, great. So I think that's our meeting. Motion to adjourn. Any other discussion?
Just thank you. Thank you, Holly. And I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All right, everyone. Well, let's adjourn. We're the last bit of quorum here. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful Halloween. And